In this chapter, we are going to create an opening here in the wall, or entrance or hallway if you want. So we can start by moving the cursor in the right place, and I want to do this like 2/3 in the wall here. So I will move a cursor right there and a little bit up here, because if you remember, the reference render has a platform there, so we need this to be a little bit higher up, maybe here. So let's start by adding a cylinder. I will press Shift A and add a cylinder there, and we can leave this at 32 vertices. I will disable wireframe overlay for now so it doesn't look so cluttered. And now I want to go into the edit mode and rotate this. So R and then Y will rotate on the Y-axis 90 degrees, so enter 90 and confirm with enter. Now let's look from the front here, and I want to scale this up a little bit, but not too much. Let's press S and let's lock the X-axis, so Shift X, so we are scaling only on the Z and Y, and scale it up like this. Okay, maybe something smaller. That looks fine. And now let's tab out, and I want to duplicate this, so press Shift D, enter, and immediately we can press H to hide this. I want to save this for later, and now we'll use this to make a hole in the wall. So select the cylinder, right click, shade smooth, and we will subtract that from the room object, so shift click here, and let's do Ctrl- with the bool tool. And now if we rotate this, we can see the hole is there, but the shading is a little bit weird. So let's select the room object here and go to the object data properties and enable auto smooth. We can leave 30 degrees there. That's just to make this a little bit better. And now we need to subtract from those panels as well. So let's select this Boolean object once again. Let's rotate, and I will press Shift D once again. I will make another duplicate, enter. Now let's look from the side, so 3 on the numpad. Let's enable wireframe view, and I want to make this a little bit larger. So tab in, press S and Shift X again, and we want to make this slightly larger like this. Okay, let's rotate, and now I will switch back to the solid view, tab out, and subtract this from the panels. So shift click the panels and do Ctrl- with the bool tool. And now of course we'll need to fix the stag a little bit to get rid of those shading issues. So go to the modifiers tab and move this above the bevel modifier. Now just to make sure that everything's all right, we can have a look around, and everything looks fine. And I wanted to do this cutout slightly larger than the first one, so there's a little bit of variation, you know, between these parts. And now we can press Alt H to unhide that original cylinder, and we can make that entrance. So first of all, we'll need to make this smaller. So let's select the cylinder, tab in, select this front face, so 3 for face select the face, and we have already the vertex snapping prepared. So we'll just now press G, then X, and while holding Control, we will snap this to one of these bottom vertices on the wall there, so we are perfectly aligned. But before we proceed, I want to tab out for a while and go back to those panels. As you know, the platform will be here, so it just makes sense to have this curved panel a little bit higher up there. So let's tab in. And now I want to hover over this and press L to select it. Let's look from the side here. And additionally, we'll need to select some of those other panels as well. So let's toggle the X-ray, go to the vertex select, and just drag around the whole area here. And we'll move this up so it sits in the middle of the cylinders. Let's press G and Z and move this up like this. And now I will tab out, toggle the X-ray again, and let's have a look. And now that we moved it out, I've noticed that we probably somehow disabled the bottom panel, and I suspect that has something to do with the door here. So if I select the door now and try to move it on a Z-axis, that's exactly what happened there. So what happens is that the door boolean, this one that's cutting out of those panels, is aligned perfectly here at the bottom with the panel, and that creates an issue. You have to be really careful with booleans, and there will be a lot of stuff happening like this, so worry not. We can easily fix this either by modifying the door or the wall panels themselves. So I'll probably just fix the panels. So let's select this once again, go into the edit mode, let's look from the side with number 3 on a numpad, toggle the X-ray, select these vertices, and let's grab them up a little bit. So it's a similar distance like here. Press G, then Z, and move this up tiny bit, and now everything works just fine. So we have no shading issues here. This is cut out nicely here in the middle, and we can go back to that cylindrical opening here. So let's select the object, go into the edit mode, so tab in, and now I will select this front face and press I for an inset and do approximately an inset like this. Okay, that's great. And now I want to delete this face in the back, so press X and delete faces and extrude this one towards the back. So let's rotate once again and extrude this here and press X and delete these faces as well. And now I want to connect this. So press 2 for an edge select, Alt click here and Alt Shift click here to select both of those loops, and they're misaligned, so first we'll need to align them. Press S, then X and 0 to scale them to 0 on the X-axis, and this will align them perfectly. And now to connect this, we just need to create one face, so select this edge here and the opposite one right there, press F to fill, and now we can easily close everything else by just selecting this face here and pressing F repeatedly, or by holding F we'll just close it up. So that's quite a neat trick. Now we can rotate to the front and make some kind of bevel here. So Alt click the edge loop right there, press Ctrl B and do a bevel, and I want to do 3 segments here, something like this. Okay, but I don't want it going so deep. So to make this a little bit more shallow, so we can do some kind of scaling here, and to be able to do that, first we need some reference point, and we can use this loop right here as a reference point for scaling. So Alt Shift click here, and once again to make this active, you can see that this is marked white, so that's the active object right now, and just hold the period on the keyboard to switch from median point to active element. So right now the pivot point is set to this element right there, and we can press S then X to scale this a little bit like this to make it more shallow. Okay, I really like this, and now I want to select the back loop, so Alt click right here and do a bevel there as well, but not so large. So Ctrl B and do something like this. Let's check it out. That's okay by me. And now one last detail to model here is to go to the face select, so press 3, Alt click here, let's do an inset, and now let's extrude this inside. So we have a little bit of a sophistication there. We'll put the light there inside later. So Alt E, extrude faces along normals, and by holding Shift we can extrude this in subtle steps. Okay, and now I will tab out and let's add some bevel to this. So first of all, right click, let's enable smooth shading and go to the object data properties and enable auto smooth, and let's go all the way to 180 degrees. As you know, we'll need that for the bevel modifier to enable harden normals. And now we can go to the modifier tab and add the bevel modifier, and first of all let's disable that clamp overlap, and let's go down with that amount to something really subtle like 0.025. And if we now enable wireframe overlay, we can see the bevel result. So let's select the angle limit method, and now we can increase the number of segments, and we are hitting this edge here, which we don't want to do, so we'll probably have to increase the angle here to something like 38 degrees. It might be different for you, depends on the bevel you done here, so just find something that works for you. And now let's go to the shading and enable harden normals. And now we have that nice beveled object that serves as a ring for our entrance. And I want to add additional sophistication to this object. I want it to look like it's made out of panels or something. So what we can do is press Shift A and add a cube. And now tab into the edit mode. Let's look from the side by pressing 3 on the numpad, toggle the X-ray, and we will move it to the side. so we can mirror it later. Let's zoom in a little bit, press G and move it like this. So you move it close to the origin point and then you just place it somewhere here. If you really want to be precise, you can do this with increments, but I don't really think it's necessary right here. We can always modify this later. So let's just leave that little bit of a space there, and now we can tab out and add a mirror modifier and switch off X and enable Y and Z, and that'll create this kind of shape, and we'll use it to cut the panels out of the ring object using booleans. But first I want to check out the depth of these cubes, so let's rotate to the back, toggle the X-ray, and this is too far, so let's go to the edit mode again, press S, then X, and scale this down. So it's just a little bit over the wall there. Now we can tab out, shift click our ring object and Control/. So this will create those nice cutouts there, and we can go ahead and fix the stack. So we move the boolean modifier over the bevel, but I suspect we might have a problem here. If we select this object here and go into the edit mode, we are probably cutting into that inset we made. So to make things a little bit easier, I still have the ring selected. If you don't have this selection active, you can always alt click here, and let's press Ctrl+ to expand that selection, press G then X and move this to the side like this, so it doesn't get in the way of the bevel. And now this looks much better here, and maybe even more if we check out the wireframe overlay. We can move this even more. Okay, works fine. And since we have this object selected, don't forget to fix the stack here as well. As you can remember, we are creating linked duplicate under these two objects right now, and we need to fix the stack on both of those. And now we'll need to check for some shading issues. Maybe the bevel is too strong for this kind of object. So right now what we can do is to expand the bevel settings, and let's go lower on the mount, something like 0.02, and here as well. Okay, that fixed it, but this is still too close. So what we can do is to zoom out, select that boxes object, go into the edit mode, let's look from the front, and now we can just move this to give it a little bit more space like this. So you can see how this is interactive, where you can move this however you want in combination with that mirror modifier. So works nicely. And now we'll add those additional details. So first of all, I will select this object here, go into the edit mode and select that inside loop once again. So 3 for face select, alt click here, and let's press Shift D to duplicate and P to separate, enter to confirm, and now select the new object. First of all, I want to remove all of these modifiers there. Let's go into the edit mode, select all, and I want to scale this on X to 0. So S, then X and 0. So we are compressing this to a single edge basically. If we enable wireframe overlay, this will be better visible. But we've created double geometry there because we just scaled it down. So right now, additionally, we just need to press M and merge by distance. And the Blender says it removed 32 vertices, so that's exactly what we wanted. And now you can see how far it is from the edge here. So we want to place it somewhere in the middle. But don't forget to press that period key once again and switch this to median point. And now let's press S and scale this down like this. Okay, let's go back to the solid view. And now we can tab out and convert this to curve. And you can do this in the object menu, or if you add it to quick favorites, you can do it with Q as I have it here. So just go object, convert to curve from mesh. And now if you go to the geometry settings, you can add some depth here in the bevel section, just like that. So we just want to fill up that space, and we can reduce the resolution a little bit to something like 3. Right click, shade smooth, And if we now disable the wireframe overlay, this looks quite nice. And this will be glowing later, so there will be kind of a LED light inside or something like that. And now I want to finish this up by creating some kind of a hallway behind it, so it's not just an open hole. So let's rotate the view a little bit. Now select the entrance once again. Let's go into the edit mode and we'll reuse some geometry there. So 2 for an edge select, alt click right here, and we'll duplicate and separate this. So Shift D, enter, P, enter to separate, and now select the new object. And we'll remove the Boolean modifier here, and we can leave the bevel. We can use it later. And now let's go into the edit mode by pressing tab. Let's press F to fill, I to inset, and we'll delete the middle face. So delete these faces, select all and scale it a little bit up. If we enable wireframe view, you will see how far you probably need to go, something like this, to match that ring. And now we can just extrude this, press E and do an extrusion. And now we're rendering this in the isometric view. So if you look from this side and press 5 on a numpad to enable isometric camera, you can see that this works just fine, but here it will be weird. So what we can do is to share this a little bit so it's not visible from the isometric view. So let's press 1 for a front view. Let's zoom in a little bit, and now we'll press Alt Control Shift S for the sharing, and let's enter 0.75 and minus, and this is the angle that should work for us. And now if we go back to the perspective and press 5 for an isometric view, you can see there's no longer any tube visible there because it's cut like this. So let's press 5 again to go to perspective. Now let's zoom in a little bit, and we'll add some structure to this by selecting the inside loop. So 3 for face select, alt click here to select that loop, press I for an inset, and I again. So we are insetting these individual faces, and now we can press Alt E and extrude along normals a little bit outside like this. So we have some structure there. Let's say about disable the wireframe overlay, and I think the bevel is a little bit too strong here, so let's expand the bevel settings and we can go a little bit down, something like this, so it looks like it's more from a metal or something. And now this will look perfectly from this side, and basically we are finished now with this entrance. So only thing left to do is to make some order in the scene. So let's select these new booleans here. Okay, that's all of them basically. And now these objects, the ring in the middle, the panels, and then the entrance object here as last. And we'll press Ctrl P and parent this to the object. Now we can rename this to entrance, and we can have a look if everything works fine. So press G then Y and move this around, so you can see this works perfectly with the scene. All of these booleans are working, but we have a little bit of a shading issue right here. This here is too close, so what we can do is either move this, or I think making it a little bit larger wouldn't hurt. So I think if we zoom out, this entrance looks a little bit too small. So now that only this one object is selected, we can just press S and scale it up. And we can modify that later. So we'll see when we are finishing with the layout and we have all of the other objects in place. We can then move things aside and scale them up and down. But right now I think this will work. And one thing we can do here is to select this outer Boolean object, shift click the ceiling here and press Ctrl minus, so we have a cutout there, and fix the stack. So again, we can use one object with multiple Boolean modifiers and easily create an object that fits into its environment procedurally like this. So that's for the entrance. Let me zoom out a little bit. We have all named. Don't forget to save, so I'll press Ctrl S. And we can now move on to the next part.